Wisteria, energy, twister. Hello everyone, welcome back to Ghost Stories of Essex. This tale's called Haunted Rochford. Let's see what's in store. When it comes to the ghost with the most, haunts that is, Anne Boleyn seems to be one of the most active with a widespread schedule of appearances around the county. Country, should I say, not county. There have been several dramatic sightings of the Tower of London since she was beheaded there in 1536, and she has been seen at Heath Castle in Kent, Bolin Hall in Cheshire, Blicking Hall in Norfolk, where the hapless Queen arrives annually on the date of her death in a coach drawn by headless horses, sitting inside with her head on top of a lap. It is said that the inhabitants of Blicking are so used to her regular appearances that they no longer take any notice. Poor Anne. In Essex she returned in spirit to New Hall, at Boreham, perhaps remembering happier times, there when Henry still loved her, and also to Rochford Hall, her old family home, where Henry came to court the dark-haired beauty he called my Lady Anne of Rochford. According to Hay, Ippersley Cox's Haunted Britain, Anne's headless ghost haunts Rochford Hall, particularly on the 12 nights following Christmas. There is much mystery surrounding Anne Boleyn, such as where she was born and also a final resting place. After her execution, history relates that her body was unceremoniously dumped in an old arrow chest and buried in the chapel of St. Peter at Vincula in the Tower of London. And since a ghostly procession has sometimes been seen in the chapel, led by a figure closer that resembles Anne Boleyn, this would seem to add credence to this belief. But a tradition persists that Anne's heart, or as some say red, was removed from this grave and, after a brief pause at Rochford Hall, was reburied at East Horndon Church, which stands on a hilltop adjacent to the South End Arterial Road, the A127. Whether or not she did haunt Rochford Hall, an obstreperous ghost of some kind was causing trouble there in the 18th century, reported by the rector of Woodham, Mortimer, in a letter in August 1776. The Rochford Hall ghost grows more rude every day. He now amuses himself with throwing the boots and shoes at the men's heads. Mr. Wright was at Rochford the week before last, and sent in a great hurry for Mr. Codd, and me to come to exorcise the righteous ghost, but I was unluckily in town. The town of Rochford had another ancient building where restoration work in 1983 apparently activated a whole collection of apparitions. This is a 13th century property in the South Street, known as the Old House and now used as council offices, and after buildings working on it described ghostly sightings, a group headed by Jacqueline English, then a trainee with the Rochford District Council, decided to spend the night there in September 1984. I talked to the former resident, who told me she and her family had seen several strange figures, as well as hearing loud wheezing in one of the bedrooms. She told the local press this. Miss English had written a booklet about the historic gabled building, which had originally been assumed to date from the 15th century. But during the extensive restoration work, evidence was revealed that its real age was approximately 1270. Obviously, through the centuries, the house has known many occupants and happenings, and it would be unsurprising if the echoes of the past still lingered there. And so on a warm September evening, Jacqueline English and 5 other people, including Carol a psychic, arrived at the old manor armed with sleeping bags and flasks of coffee, hoping that any paranormal phenomena would come forth and make itself known. After they got settled and held meditation in the main hall. The group exchanged impressions they had picked up. Several people had been conscious of presences. One woman in black and white dress of Puritan appearance, with children and a dog. Several other vague figures too. Later, some members of the group described scenes seen in the mind's eye that seemed like glimpses of the past, such as someone lying in bed with an old lady in a bonnet and a shawl. Also there, apparently knitting. There was also a table laid for a banquet, a happy group of Quakers singing. Carol the psychic had more dramatic visions to report. She described a screaming woman and men as they were committing a murder, a frightened woman under arrest begging for a pardon, and most vivid of all, a delightful little Victorian girl in a long dress holding a rag doll. She felt that the child probably died young in the house. During a solitary tour of the house, Carol received more impressions, as if the previous life of the house had impregnated the fabric of the building and had been somehow activated by the recent building and restoration work. After a midnight meditation in the main hall, she noticed the same little girl coming down the stairs, walking towards her. The child had blonde hair in ringlets and told Carol she was looking for a mother. Carol sensed that the child's name was Lizzie and she was 6 or 7 years old. And when asked how she died, the answer was a bad cough. Lizzie seemed to be afraid of a hovering presence she called the man in green. And believing the poor little earthbound Lizzie wanted release, Carol told her to walk towards the light. She then saw her disappear through the dormer window, and she had gone towards the light and to waiting arms. Carol then concentrated on the man in green, who had been nearby as she was talking to Lizzie. She described his green velvet suit, pouch and hat as medieval and said he seemed angry and was shouting, "Get out of my house!" When asked who he was, he replied, "I am the lord of all that you see." So she was also aware of a figure in black, Elizabethan garb, drawing a long thin sword, and another member of the group saw the Puritan lady again, but more clearly this time. It was a long and interesting visual in which some of the group, particularly the sensitive Carol, seemed to have tuned in to a kaleidoscope of the house's past. Sometime before the September visit, Jacqueline had talked to previous occupants who described their sightings of a little girl of 6 or 7 in a long white nightdress who wandered around the house, often weeping, and it seemed likely she was one and the same as the child ghost, Lizzie, who had appeared during the vigil. These people had heard Evitt breathing in a bedroom that since renovation is now part of the main hall, and the dormer window through which Lizzie disappeared was once in that room. Were the wheezing noises reported due to poor Lizzie's, illness? When I talked to Jacqueline English, now McEwen, recently, she mentioned the man in green. He seemed as if he wanted to make contact, she said. He appeared in various parts of the house during the vigil. Since the house had been converted to council offices, it is open to visitors on Wednesdays afternoon from 2 o'clock in the evening until 6:30 in the evening, with guided tours available. Jacqueline acted on the guide while working on the old house, but experienced nothing paranormal then, and the staff who work there at present have never seen any ghostly apparitions. Restoration and building work frequently do stir up paranormal activity in an old property. It's like scenes. They often come back, anything violent, anything that's passionate. They leave a strong impression on their surroundings. So in certain circumstances, it can be replayed, like a recording. Any figures present appear oblivious of anyone watching, whereas what I think of as a real ghost, such as Lizzie or the man in green, they react to the living. And they even stop and communicate at times. Not always, but they do. How does it work? If we only knew, and could reactivate what someone had called the cinema of time at will, and see the past unroll like a magic picture show. Meantime, the old house at Rochford is a wonderful building, full of history, but still many secrets. The end. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate it. Hit the like, share, and do consider subscribing. Many blessings. Wisteria, energy, twister.